Harry is a drug-addled embarrassment who should be either locked up or shut down. And things have reached a path where his father really does need to remove him off the royal family website. And if he continues to fail to do that, he is being remiss in his duty to the British people and to the British Crown.
The state of Prince Harry's hairline, and I genuinely believe this, is now indicative about the ruin in his life.
Lady Colin Campbell just said something so direct, so unfiltered, so completely stripped of the diplomatic softness that usually surrounds royal commentary, that even people who have been following this story for years stopped dead in their tracks when they heard it. She called Prince Harry, on live camera, in a Dan Wootton interview, on the record, a drug adult embarrassment who should be either locked up or shut down.
Well, Dan, I actually take the view that if he wants to be natural, which he is being, he has an absolute right to be natural. I'm actually mystified that he simply doesn't go and get his hair implanted. Because, I mean...
Absolutely. You know, I've done it. It was the best thing I ever did.
Well, one of my sons has done it, who you know them both. But
very handsome, you know, he is too.
I gave one of them as a present because he was going bald, and he's very good looking, and he didn't want to go bald. And but what gets me about Harry is the lack of insight, that he looks at William, who's equally bald, and says how terribly bald William is, but then that somehow it's okay because he's not bald when he's equally bald. It's a total lack of insight and the, you know, putting down his brother for situations that he shares. It shows how immature and really very stupid he is.
Well, indeed. And Lady C, that's why I think it completely fits with what happened in court this week. Because remember, he genuinely had led to believe that he was going to be the dragon slayer, that he was going to destroy the British Free Press. Now, of course, we understand, and as someone who's worked on Fleet Street, that there have been absolute outrageous crimes committed. And I am the first to say all of those people who committed those crimes should suffer for it, should lose their careers, should go to jail. But you can't make stuff up. You cannot make stuff up. And you've got to be very confident when you go into a case like this. And Lady C, you have written this week, and I want to share it with people because it's very, very fascinating. You wrote on your X about your own experiences as a dragon slayer of the British press.
Not paraphrased, not softened, not taken out of context. Exactly those words. Delivered with the calm certainty of someone who has spent decades navigating the most complex corridors of British royal and aristocratic life. Someone who has personally taken major newspapers to court and WON. Someone who understands, from direct personal experience, what genuine press abuse looks like and what fraudulent opportunism looks like. And Lady Colin Campbell is saying, clearly, publicly, without hesitation, that what just happened in that London courtroom with Prince Harry's £50 million legal disaster falls firmly into the second category. Welcome back to the Marquee Report. I am your host, and today we are breaking down the most explosive royal commentary moment of the week. Lady Colin Campbell's extraordinary assessment of Harry's catastrophic court defeat, revealed in Dan Wootton's Outspoken, the fraud at the heart of the case. The £50 million shakedown that failed, the devastating truth about Diana and the Daily Mail that destroys Harry's biggest argument, and why Lady Colin Campbell is now demanding King Charles take immediate action against his own son. Every single word of this matters. Let's get into it. Let's start with what actually happened, because the scale of this legal collapse needs to be properly understood.
Harry and Meghan have been going around moaning about white privilege and that they are victims of white privilege. I mean, you know,
You couldn't make it up.
so exactly. So now they're playing the race card as well as the class card, and they are victims of a cruel establishment because they are the underdogs. Harry and Meghan are two of the most privileged people on earth. I mean, it's about time that he really was stopped in his tracks, certainly in terms of the presentation on the royal family website. It's now inexcusable for the king to continue to have him on the website. He's taken the king's raw to court. He's taken he gets a judgment against him. He then complains to an elected politician to get a lawyer's and a court's judgment overturned. And now he tries to destroy the British press, which is fundamental in a democracy for the maintenance of our freedoms. And I mean, Charles really does have to do something. This is now beyond the pale that
Yes.
he is accusing Mr. Justice Nicklin of corruption. And he is basically saying that, well, he said it's a stitch up, and that influence was used to prevent him from winning the case, when it was obvious to me that there was no case and never was.
Prince Harry, alongside Elton John, David Furnish, Sadie Frost, Liz Hurley, and several other high-profile claimants, brought a massive legal case against Associated Newspapers, the publisher of the Daily Mail. The claims centered on allegations of unlawful information gathering. The argument was that the newspaper had obtained private information through illegal means, and that Harry and the other claimants were victims. Harry genuinely believed he was going to win. He positioned himself as the Dragon Slayer, the man who would finally bring down the British press establishment, the prince who took on the system and destroyed it. And then Mr. Justice Nicol delivered his judgment. The claimants lost, decisively, comprehensively, and the findings went far beyond simply ruling against Harry, into territory that Lady Colin Campbell is now describing in language that is genuinely shocking. She wrote publicly that the case was founded on fraud, that Harry and the other claimants knew their case was fraudulent and pursued it anyway, that the key witness, a man named Gavin Burrows, had actually sworn that the witness statement the entire case was built upon was a forgery. The foundation of their legal argument was not just weak, it was fabricated, and they brought it to court anyway. Lady Colin Campbell has personal experience with Mr. Justice Nicol from her own successful legal action against the Daily Mirror. She describes him as an impressive judge who gives every party every possible opportunity to make their case before ruling. She has zero doubt about the fairness of his judgment. And yet Harry responded by suggesting the judge was compromised, that there had been a whitewash, that the establishment closed ranks to protect the newspaper. Lady Colin Campbell's response to that accusation? She is calling it outrageous, beyond the pale, and demanding consequences. Now here is where this interview went somewhere that stopped everyone watching. Lady Colin Campbell did not just criticize Harry's legal strategy. She did not just question his judgment or his motives. She went further than any credible royal commentator has gone publicly, and said that Harry is a drug adult embarrassment who should be either locked up or shut down. And then she turned her attention to King Charles. She said that Charles now has a genuine constitutional duty, not just a personal choice, but an actual duty to the British people and to the Crown, to remove Harry from the official royal family website. That if Charles continues to allow Harry's name and image to appear there, while Harry is simultaneously accusing judges of corruption, attempting to destroy the British press, and taking the institution itself to court, the king is being remiss in his duty. Think about how significant that statement is. This is not a tabloid commentator throwing insults into the void. This is Lady Colin Campbell, a woman with 5 decades of direct experience with British aristocratic and royal life. A woman who has been wrongly targeted by newspapers and fought back successfully through the courts. A woman who knows what genuine injustice looks like and is absolutely clear that what Harry just did does not qualify. And she is saying Charles can no longer stay silent, that the time for paternal patience has passed, that Harry's behavior has reached a point where the institution itself requires the king to act. Now let's talk about what Lady Colin Campbell and Dan Wootton are both calling the real objective behind this entire legal operation. Because winning the case, according to both of them, was never actually the primary goal. The combined legal costs exceeded £50 million, and the argument being made is that Harry and his allies in the organization hacked off had one of 2 objectives: either extract massive financial settlements from associated newspapers, or, if that failed, destroy the company entirely, shut it down. Eliminate one of the most powerful newspaper operations in Britain and one of the world's largest news websites from the media landscape permanently. Lady Colin Campbell is direct about Harry's role in this. She describes him as the useful idiot in a much larger operation. Someone whose celebrity profile and personal grievances were weaponized by people with a much broader agenda: the systematic dismantling of a free press on both sides of the Atlantic. And she connects dots that deserve to be connected loudly. Harry's involvement with the Aspen Institute, his documented interest in controlling social media narratives, the pattern, across multiple fronts simultaneously, of attempting to limit what independent journalists and commentators can say and report. Lady Colin Campbell calls it outrageous, and she says it needs to be stopped. Dan Wootton agrees. And he adds one detail that tells you everything about how this settlement negotiation actually played out. Harry reportedly sought a deal with the Daily Mail before the case collapsed completely. He wanted them to settle, but he also wanted them to agree, as part of any settlement, that they would never attack Harry again, a permanent gag on criticism alongside the financial payout. The Daily Mail refused, and they were right to, because as Dan Wootton points out, if even one of the 97 stories at the center of the case had come from illegal means, Harry would have used that settlement to call for the entire newspaper to be shut down. They risked everything by fighting, and they won everything by doing so. Now here is the argument Harry has been making throughout this entire legal saga, and the argument that Lady Colin Campbell, Dan Wootton, Piers Morgan, and Richard Kay have just collectively demolished. Harry has consistently framed his battle against the Daily Mail as something Diana would have wanted, as a continuation of his mother's fight, as the loyal son carrying forward the princess's legacy against a brutal press establishment. It is, according to people who actually knew Diana personally, completely false. Richard Kay, the former royal editor of the Daily Mail, who had a genuine personal friendship with Diana, has stated publicly that the Daily Mail was Diana's paper. She would walk across from Kensington Palace to their offices regularly. She attended private boardroom lunches. She used the paper as a deliberate conduit for her own messaging, knowingly, strategically, brilliantly. Piers Morgan revealed on camera that Diana called him regularly, came to lunch at Kensington Palace, would call before stories ran, and send copy back with her own amendments written in. She was not a victim of the press. She was one of the most brilliant media operators the British press had ever encountered. And Lady Colin Campbell, who has perhaps the most complex and nuanced understanding of Diana, of anyone in this conversation, delivers the assessment that cuts deepest. She describes Diana as the greatest press manipulator of her generation, someone who co-wrote books through chosen intermediaries, who shaped narratives with extraordinary skill, who used journalists, including the Daily Mail specifically, as tools to achieve her own very clear objectives. Lady Colin Campbell also makes a personal point that nobody else is making with this level of force. The damage the Daily Mail allegedly did to Harry does not come close to the damage various newspapers did to her over 3 decades of false reporting. And yet she is standing up publicly in defense of their right to exist. Because a free press, with all its imperfections, is fundamental to a functioning democracy. Harry's campaign, had it succeeded, would have destroyed that. And according to everyone who actually knew her, Diana would not have wanted it. £50 million, a forged witness statement, a judge with an impeccable record accused of corruption by a losing prince. Diana's real friends saying she would be horrified by what her son just tried to do to her favorite newspaper. And Lady Colin Campbell, one of the most credible and fearless voices in royal commentary, calling Harry a drug-adult embarrassment who should be locked up and demanding King Charles act immediately. This was not the week Harry planned. This was not the outcome he expected. And this is definitely not the legacy he set out to build when he left the royal family 6 years ago, believing he could take on every institution that had ever made him uncomfortable and win. Lady Colin Campbell has delivered the clearest verdict yet. The Dragon Slayer became the useful idiot, and the clock is now ticking on how long King Charles can afford to do nothing about it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Lady Colin Campbell right to go this far? Should King Charles remove Harry from the royal website? And does the Diana revelation change how you see this entire legal battle? Every take welcome. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and I will see you in the next one at the Marquee Report.